So why is speaking not the best way to get fluent in a language? So I know this is going to seem kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I want you to think about how you learned your first language. And probably the first thing that's going to come to mind is speaking, right? Because we learn by speaking, like absorbing everything around us and listening and then, saying what we hear and all of that. Well, now think about how you learn a second language. And I'm talking about like if you're in the US and you're going to school, like usually in high school when you learn a second language and you are learning by memorization, grammar, vocabulary, all of that. Okay, so now you've got these two different concepts in your mind, first language learning and second language acquisition. Well, now think about in your first language, when you start to learn that language, right? It's mostly just absorption, you're learning, you're speaking, you're all of that. Okay, then you go to school. And when you go to school, there's a little bit of speaking, but think about like what's the focus now? Now that you're in school, the focus is not really so much on speaking, is it? So once you start going to school, there's a really heavy focus on reading and writing. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, but how is this like learning a second language? Well, language is just language, whether it's your first language or your second or your third or your fifth or 50th, whatever it is, it's all just language. So thinking about your native language and those skills that you learn, right, reading and writing, you already have a little bit of the speaking and listening, but most people don't have too much of the reading and writing before school. So when you go to school and you learn that reading and writing, right, and how that improves your speaking and your listening. So bear with me here and try to think about how so think way back to when you were in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever it was, or if you're still there, if you're in school right now, look at what you're doing now, right? So thinking about how when you learned reading and writing, right? You're learning to read and write, all of that, and did your speaking level stay the same as when you were 5 years old or 6 years old as when you are now? Hopefully not, right? So the idea here is that yes, you're learning through absorbing speech, like when you're a little kid, and that's why people with language learners say like, oh, you gotta learn through absorption and all of that. Yes, there is some truth to that, but that process of reading and writing and integration, so when you're in school, again, thinking back to that classroom space, reading books, reading articles, reading aloud, right? Also speaking. So there's that integration aspect there. And then also presentations, right? So presentations, it's speaking, yes, but it's formal speaking. And typically when you do a presentation, you have some kind of writing to back it up. Whether it is like a report that you do before you deliver that presentation, or maybe you prepare note cards or like a PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is, but it's not just all speaking. And that speaking comes later as a result, right, as a product of that writing and reading and research and all of that. So why is speaking not the best way to improve your fluency? Well, think back to all of these practices. Reading and writing is what really, really, really improves your fluency. Those people who become highly educated and they're able to speak so well in a debate or in a presentation or even in conversation, whatever it is, look at that reading and writing background that they have. So yes, you do need to speak to improve your fluency, whether it's a second language or your native language or any language, but that alone is not enough to achieve a high level of fluency. And it's not the best method to just focus on speaking to improve your fluency. What you really, really need is an integrated approach to all four of these skills, right? So reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The best way to learn, to improve your fluency is not just by doing any one of these skills, although it is helpful to do practices in each of these skills. The best way to really improve your overall fluency and be able to just speak in a way that is cohesive and it just flows is by reading, absorbing information through reading and writing, because writing is practice for speaking. When you write, you're thinking about, okay, what am I gonna say? You have time to organize your thoughts, the same as like in a presentation, you have that time to organize what you're going to say. So writing prepares you for speaking. It gives you that practice of organizing your ideas and then putting them into spoken words, right? So when you use all of these skills together, that's when you get to that high level of fluency. That's what takes your language learning to the next level. Using the skills from your native language that you already developed as a child and then just bringing them into your new language, right? Because you don't have to go back and learn how to read and write all over again. All you have to do is apply those skills to your new language. And yes, you gotta learn maybe a new alphabet, a new writing system, and all of that, but you're still gonna have a structure, you're still going to have some kind of speech, and you are still going to have reading, writing, speaking, and listening in pretty much any language. So when we transfer those skills over, now you're using everything you've done already and applying it to a new language. And not only is this going to bring you to a much higher level of fluency, but it's going to expedite your learning as well, because you're no longer thinking like, okay, I've got to learn everything from the beginning, just like when I was a child. No, we're just gonna transfer it over to that new language. All right, so that's it. There's so much more I could add on to this topic, but that gives you a little bit of an overview of kind of how this process of skill transferring works. And if you do want to know more about it, make sure to check down below, because I do have a free mini workshop on this topic and workshops on all kinds of different topics that are coming up in my store. But this is a free mini workshop specifically on this topic. And it's basically, so it's on speaking fluency and this integrated approach to speaking and to fluency and all of that. And just will get you a much better idea of exactly how all of these concepts work. And it's a full-on presentation of these topics with some exercises for you to do to practice them as well. All right, so I'll leave that down below in the description bar, and I will see you guys back here next time.